Hello, everyone. This time without any technical difficulties. This is quite insane. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting Lighthouse live session. Lighthouse lives are, live sessions with people in AI landscape. Usually we talk to artists, we talk to tech artists, we talk to think leaders, in AI landscape. And today we have Stefan Fejes, who is a co-founder of Preview.io, one of the most exciting platforms that I have been meddling with. And I must say that my jaw is still on the floor. And get comfortable, get something beside your chair because your jaw will definitely get on the floor. So, Stefan, welcome to Lighthouse Live. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing great. Actually, it feels so odd, like transitioning from the previous Zoom into this room, but no, doing good. It's morning. Woke up, did some customer support, got here to the office, so pretty excited to chat.
Yeah, awesome. You're working nonstop.
Yeah, I was like today was like a funny day. Like I have like this habit ever since starting a company to like wake up in the middle of the night very randomly at like random hours just to like check my phone to see like if everything is okay. And like every few days, like there would be like a studio that's like somewhere in Europe or like in Asia, and they're like urgently need help. So today was one of those days where I got up at 4, and there was like studio in London who was like resolving something. So my day started pretty much like 4 hours ago, and then I went back to sleep. So it was a
Nice.
fun
Good
one.
morning.
But
Good
yeah.
morning. All right. So, people, if you do have any questions, please use the comment section in LinkedIn. I will be on the lookout for cool questions. So bring them on if you got any. All right, Stefan, can you tell us something about yourself? We chat a lot lately, and I've been floored when I heard about your story. You started as the youngest employee with GitHub. Is that correct?
So sort of, yeah. So sorry, like my throat is dead. I started my journey like as a software engineer, so had nothing to do with like the creative industry. And this was about like when I was like 14, 15 years old. I went to like a high school for like computer science and had a lot of fun while there. And very early on, like I was applying to like a lot of jobs, and like obviously being like so young, everybody was like rejecting me pretty much because there's like no resume, no proof of any work. And I got like feedback from one of the companies to kind of like go and do a little bit of like open source work. So what essentially was, it was me going out and looking for projects where I can like contribute, where I can like do, some work for free essentially, and like kind of like help the community and whatnot. So one of those projects I found like on Reddit, there was like this guy from Greece, and I think overnight we started to hack together like an education platform for like coding. And this one actually kind of like grew overnight, like extremely rapidly. So we got it to be like one of the top like 50 projects of like all time on GitHub, which was like pretty big at the time. This was like 2018. I was like still in high school. And through that, like the CEO of GitHub flew me to like San Francisco. So like my first time being in the States. I gave like a talk at a conference. It was like a massive conference, a lot of people like just sharing the story of like how we were doing this open source project. And I remember at the end of that event, I went to the GitHub CEO, Nat Friedman, and I was like, can I get a job here? And like he was literally like, took him 5 seconds. He was like, no. And I was like, oh shit. Like I flew here, like it was, a very long trip. I really, really wanted this. But yeah, like 15 minutes after, he's like, it was a joke. Like, let's get you through the interview process. And that's how I started at GitHub when I was like 18, 19. So it was a pretty exciting time.
That's pretty insane. I mean, high school kids standing on the podium with all people, with all the, scientists and giving lectures. That had to be surreal.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. Like there weren't any scientists, mostly coders, but I think at the time I didn't even see it as that. I just saw it as like a bunch of like really cool people that were like doing all sorts of stuff. So I did a lot more like public speaking like 6, 7 years ago compared to now. Now I don't do any. So this is kind of like a first appearance in a long time on like any podcasts.
But after that, you went into AI pretty quickly. Is that correct?
No, not really. So what happened really is that I started to work at GitHub, but like the contract with GitHub was like starting a couple of months from that conference. So I still had to like fill up my time with some work. And I stumbled upon like these two guys named Tim and Saba, who were like from London. And they had this like very ambitious idea of like building the first ever like video editor in the browser. So don't think of it as like Premiere or DaVinci. Like it was basically like a very simple video editor that could like live in your browser, so you could like trim your videos, etc. So I joined that company like before I joined GitHub, and for like a very brief moment, I had two jobs at the same time. But very quickly came to realization that actually that like video editing company is like doing extremely well, like in terms like it has a lot of like potential. And I remember going to GitHub CEO and I was like, Nat, like GitHub was like a dream come true for me, but like there's also this startup on the side, and can you help me like decide like what should I do? And I called a couple of friends as well, and everybody was pretty much saying like, stay at GitHub, like super high paying job, like it's like a software engineering career, like a lot of people dream of. But Nat was saying something in line of give it a year, go do a startup for a year. If it works out, you're gonna thank me later. If it doesn't work out, like GitHub is gonna like hold doors open for you like a year from now. So it was like a zero risk almost to kind of like quit a job and like join these two guys in London. It was like pretty remote job, and I didn't sign any contract, any papers. Like they literally just put me like in their like GitHub repository and Slack, and like we started to collaborate over like first couple of weeks. And essentially that like editor like slowly grew from like something that was like a almost like a side project, and it was like a bootstrap company, to like a much bigger company right now. It's called V.io. So essentially I was on the founding team there, and it was not AI in the like first year or so. Essentially the full story goes is that like we are doing this like online video editor. You can like trim videos, you can crop videos, you can add text, emojis, like all the stuff you could do like 10 years ago, and like other tools. But then one day Google launched like their AI model for transcription, and what that was essentially is like you could take like an audio file and turn it into text. And at a time, like my best friend Velko, who's now my co-founder, he was like, what if we take this model and like essentially make subtitles out of it? So at Veed, like we pretty much built like the first online like captioning service where like you could go in, upload your video, and back in 2019 you could essentially get the high quality subtitles on your videos in like a couple of seconds. So I think from that moment, like we didn't call it AI, but like it was clear like a ML model. And now looking back at it, like sure we were doing AI, but yeah, that was kind of like my first encounter with that kind of technology. And ever since then, essentially the growth at Veed picked up. Like the subtitles were like massive revenue driver. Like I think in the first year we did like 0 to 1 million ARR, fully bootstrapped. We were like a team of, I don't know, 5-6 people working just remotely. And then we did like second year, we grew from like 1 million to 5 million in like annual recurring revenue. It was like all like super fun. Later on, like raised a massive round from Sequoia Capital, like hired a lot more people. So right now, like Veed is around like 200 people, maybe a bit less since I left. And in that, like in those 5 years, we did a lot of like AI stuff, but this was like AI before like the diffusion models and like generative AI. So think of like all the stuff like text to speech, or like subtitles, captions, translations. We even had like a ability to center your gaze on the camera. So if I'm looking at like a teleprompter here, like the AI would like be able to like center my eyes towards the camera. So it was like a really dear journey to me. Like I see those people as like almost like a extension of my family. Like had spent 5 years with them, so it was really fun.
But your next stop was definitely an AI company.
That was the case, yeah. So essentially, towards the end of my time at Veed, it was like about 5 years. I started, bear in mind, like when I was in like end of high school, so I skipped college, didn't have like any formal education, and essentially staying at like a same company for like a full decade. Like some people refer was just not like my thing that I was like mostly into. So I was like, what are like the most exciting things to like work on right now, and what I should be doing with my career in general. And it was honestly like super stressful period, because I very much obsessed about those kind of things, and I wanted to work on like cool stuff that has like some kind of like future potential. So I got a one-way ticket to San Francisco about like a year and a half ago. Like it was September 2024. And I essentially found this company called Viscom, which was at a time like one of the like coolest AI startups doing like this whole like sketch to render, sketch to 3D. This was way, way, way before like Nano Banana or like any other, you know, hosted models that you could just like very easily like call an API to. And fun fact was actually that like my current co-founder Velko, he was a first hire at Veed, and then he was first hire at Vizcom. So he was kind of like the one that like put me in touch with them. But long story short, I joined Viscom. They were around like 10, 15 people, like a pretty small company. And they had like incredible product, incredible growth. And I was like, I really, really, really want to work here. And Velka put me in touch with Jordan. Jordan was like, yeah, come over, you know, let's spend some time together in San Francisco. So pretty much we worked together a bit in person. And then I think after a week, he was like, you know, let's just continue like this full time. So for about a year, I led product at Viscom. It was an amazing journey. We were essentially building like one of the earliest like AI products in the design space. We sold to pretty much a lot of like enterprises. I'm not sure if I can mention the names, but like think about like every clothing brand you have it yourself, like all the hardware around you, like everything is like being designed at Viscom these days. So it was a pretty fun journey. Right now, like yeah, they're doing amazing, and I spent about like a year with them. So in that process, I learned a lot about like everything that had to do with like Gen AI.
I remember when platform was launched, I was there, and I was like, wait, hold up. So why are people using Stable Diffusion for if you can use it, you know, at your computer for free? I mean, why are people doing this? But suddenly it made sense, of course. Yeah. So you know something about product development, but before we get into that, can you tell us what Preview platform is actually about?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to like transition like from the past journey onto Preview. So essentially, at my time at Viscom, it was like summer of like last year. It was like around late July, early August. I moved to San Francisco. I met a lot of like really cool people, and one of them was like this investor of the office where I'm currently in, and he was kind of like poking me about like starting a business and like asking if I have like any business ideas. And at a time, like I wanted to do it, but like I really generally didn't have an idea like what is my path, like what is the company I want to start. And I just remember like we kept chatting for like a couple of weeks, and one week he decides to introduce me to like a first product manager from Figma. And I jump on a call with this guy. He no longer works there. He has his own like VC fund, but essentially I meet him, and like 10 minutes into the conversation, he's like, Stefan, would you quit your job if I gave you like $200,000 to go and explore ideas? For a moment, I was like, yes, like I would like literally do it like immediately. But then like I reminded myself to like make a like really like high quality product. Like you need a little bit more capital to actually like get the idea going and form a team and whatnot. So I went to the previous investor, and we kind of like continue our chats. And one day he was like, why not just raise like some venture capital to get started and like explore what your next company is going to be about? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, can we do that like pre-product, pre-idea? Like to me, that was like pretty new. I immediately called Velka, and he was like, this sounds surreal. And then we just kept like making jokes about it for like week until we actually had like a proper like fundraise conversation in this room, like a meeting room next to this one. And what really happened is that like early August, like first week of August, we ended up raising like a few $1 million pre-idea, pre-product from this fund, and from like a lot of like really cool people in the Gen AI space, people behind like Kriya, FAL, 11 Labs, Veed, Viscom. Like there's a lot of people that like supported us early in the journey, but it was all like pre-idea, pre-product. I basically had to like quit my job, incorporate a company, raise the funding, and do like all of those things in like 48 hours. So shout out to like the lawyers that that helped with all that. Like we needed to get like the legal clearance on the Viscom side, and we needed to get like a lot of paperwork done. In the meantime, we had to come up with a company name. So I went to Claude, and I was like, you know, I know we want to do video. I'm not sure what kind of video, but like give me like a cool name for a company. And the actual company name is like the Render Department. And it was like the best thing that like Claude came up with. So that's what's on the legal documentation. But really the journey from there is that Velka and I quit our jobs. and it was August, so we had like a couple of weeks essentially left at Vizcom before like we could start our like proper first day of work, and we said like September 1st is going to be like the first day of work for
That
us.
was last year, right?
This was last year, so like what, six months ago. And we didn't have an idea, so we were kind of like approaching September 1st as like we are just starting a company. We have like a balance sheet to kind of like run for some time without any issues and experiment a lot. And I remember like end of August, I literally had like stomach cramps because I was like, shit, like I quit my job. Like there's like a funding to kind of like survive. It's not that, it's more about like there's so many like cool people that like believed in us so early, and we now have to deliver on that. So it's kind of like inverse of like you usually build a product and like raise a little bit of money to continue.
So you got funded for your name only, and not for an idea.
It's not a name. I think it's the work of like that obviously like Velko and I did, the teams that we work with. So like I don't take credit for like the stuff that like Veed and Viscom did, right? But yeah, it's like the reputation of like doing good products and like kind of like leading product teams at those companies. But essentially September starts, September 1st. All we know is that like we want to do something in video. Like that's literally like something in generative AI video. We have no idea what it is, but we go through like this classic startup playbook, which is like go and talk to as many people as you can in like your niche and like try to understand what the problems are. So September 1st, I go on LinkedIn, and I was like having like 1,000 LinkedIn connections at the time. Now I'm like close to 5K. I would essentially be adding like every single person that had like a Gen AI in their like bio, AI filmmaking, directing, producing with like AI. And all I asked was like, I quit my job with my best friend. We raised some money from these people. We want to do something cool in the video space. Want to jump on a call and like brainstorm some ideas together. And in that September, like we literally went on like 100 calls together, like Velko and like a bunch of, studios, filmmakers, individuals. Like 2nd September, we got into a meeting room with like one of the big Hollywood studios, and we actually saw how they use Gen AI in their production. And what was hilarious to me was that no matter how large the studio is, everybody was using like the same process to do like the whole like storyboarding, pre-production / production. And this was actually like either using like Figma, Miro, or Milanote, which was like a new tool I learned about back in September, using those like collaborative canvases to essentially like storyboard. And then the assets were essentially coming from like all these like Gen AI tools like FreePic, Krea, like pretty much all of them. Like you would just, go generate and like bring them over to Figma. And then they were kind of like linking those frames from like Figma to like Frame.io. And like there was like a whole like loop of let's use like 10 tools to like keep track of our production. And that sounded a little bit like odd to hear that like the first week. And then I started to like dig deeper on this idea together with my co-founder, and we went on like Twitter, found this guy, PJ Ace. He was actually writing these like full blogs on, how to actually do stuff with like Gen AI, how to run production, how to run, teams. The fact that like, filmmaking is not like a solo player job. Like, he still has like directors, screenwriters. And I was like, there has to be a better way. And then essentially throughout the month of September, we just kept collecting this feedback from like the entire community, like all the studios, individuals, artists that were like, AI native, and then like also filmmakers that had nothing to do with AI, just to like understand, how everybody thinks, how everybody works. And during this month of September, essentially, we were like, okay, there's definitely like a need for like a workspace for like professional AI video, as something that's going to essentially replace, that fragmentation of, Figma, Miro, Milanote, Frame.io, and a bunch of like these Gen AI tools. And in October, we started building Preview, which we call like workspace for professional AI video. And yeah, it's a tool I'll show you later, but essentially it kind of like streamlines this whole like process of, we have an idea, we want to execute it. What happens in this process, like from generating assets, keeping track of the cost of production statuses, having like more people collaborate on it, having like versioning, reviews, like pretty much like all the things you would have like in a professional environment, just adapted for the generative AI era. So yeah, in September, I'm super happy to like dive into like maybe the problems which we encounter like in the process, more so like on the filmmaker side, what wasn't working for them. But that was kind of like what preview is and how we like started. So I think it's a good segue into the further discussion. Yeah.
All right. So what you said, you interviewed literally hundreds of people. Yeah.
A little bit more than 100 back in September, and ever since then it's been like in the hundreds. Yeah, like every day I would like try to chat to at least like one or two filmmakers.
So you're chatting to traditional studios as well as AI studios and creators and so on, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say, what are your learnings? What is the difference between the pain points of one and another?
I mean, obviously, like a lot. I think the more obvious pain points probably to the audience watching is like from the native like AI studios, AI native studios. They were essentially like embracing AI in the production, and they were actually like trying to use it pretty much on like a lot of the commercials, like short films, and they actually had like a real pain points that like we are solving. And then like the traditional studios, I would kind of divide them in like two paths. One path is like, they absolutely do not want to hear about, Gen AI. They don't want to like cooperate, which is fine. Like, totally get them. And then there was like another path of like, oh, we're scared. We want to do Gen AI, but like, where do we get started? And I think there are a lot of like traditional studios that were kind of like lost a bit on this journey of like, how do they get started with like, these video models, and how does a production look like once you have like so many like images and videos to like go through and to review them. So in terms of like pain points, I would say for AI native studios, it was pretty much like how to collaborate, how to like storyboard, how to review, how to like organize things. And then for the like first group, like the not the old school group, but like the group that's like coming from the traditional background, for them it was more so like, where do we even get started? Like, because they quickly realized that like if they go to like one of these like Gen AI platforms, like they have access to the models, but like, how do you plug the output of that model into the production? And that was kind of like the biggest differentiator. So what we've done in the process is we spent a lot of time talking to like AI native studios, because I think they had actually that like know-how of like how to orchestrate tools, and they came up with like some workflows that work for them. And then we went to like traditional ones, and traditional ones, like we use them pretty much as a good example of like how like traditional production is being run, like that whole like, linear process of like step by step of like, we have a script, shot list, casting, whatnot. And then we kind of like picked up the learnings from both worlds, and kind of like came up with a platform that has a lot of fundamentals which belong to like the traditional like video production, film industry, like shot lists, storyboards, sequences, reviews, etc. And then we picked up like the best workflows and best parts from the Gen AI ones.
It's interesting because you said that AI creatives, AI studios, AI native studios didn't know how to approach all those organizational things, right? I mean,
I wouldn't say didn't know. I was like, I think they were like trying hard, and they came up with the solutions. It's just that those solutions were like unnecessarily like messy. Like I think nobody that like I spoke to, back in September was like, oh, we hate Figma. Like we hate Figma for like storyboarding. Like it worked for them. They were happy that like in this like whole chaos that's happening in the Gen AI, they could like find a space where like, 5 people could come to the same board and like collaborate on what like the storyboard is going to look like. And they didn't necessarily have pain points around the workflow on like a high level, but like the moment you dove a little bit deeper into like what those problems were, it was essentially, if you have like a team and there's like 5 artists working for you, and they deliver like all the assets to that like storyboard. Say that you and I work for like a big client, maybe Coca-Cola. Like Coca-Cola, like their legal team is going to be like, oh, Luka, like fantastic commercial, how did you make this? And then like if you go to Figma, you're like, I have the assets, but I have to keep track of like all the prompts, all the audits, all the models being used, make sure like, I keep track of like all the like reference images. And you still as a studio have to like keep track of all of that. So what happened is that, they were using like Figma for like storyboarding, but then they had like a separate like Excel sheet or like Notion doc where they kept like a track of like all the prompts and all the assets being used. I know even some extremes which are like, screw this, like here's a new account on like all these Gen AI platforms made for each single studio. And then they, as part of like delivering a commercial, they would literally send the credentials to their legal team to like log into like, Free Pick or, any of the other big names in Gen AI. So it was pretty like hilarious to watch that, and at the same time like think about like a solution that could like essentially solve that like messy situation. But I would say like they were pretty creative. Like on this journey, like I met this guy named Jordan Daniel Chesney. He was essentially this huge. Do you know him?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he was this guy that like introduced like Milanote to us, and I was like, what is this? And turns out it's like some note-taking app from like Australia that's like 10, 15, like I don't know, maybe even like 20 years old at this point. And he was like bragging about it, like how cool it is because like it let you do like a more organized version of a canvas. So he was actually one that like worked with a lot of studios to teach them how to use like Milanote, and like his like canvases are like extremely organized, extremely beautiful to like look at. And like essentially over the course of like September, October, November, we just spent like a lot of time together, like showing him like the early demos and designs, and kind of like learned a lot from that. But I would say that AI native industry has been like super creative in the process to like overcome these issues. It's just that like the issues started to pile up, and like the more professional you went, like the bigger those issues were around like the compliance, keeping track of like who's doing what kind of work, where is like work compared to like where a client expects it to be, like what about statuses, approvals, all that. So yeah, I wouldn't call it essentially saying that like the AI native studios didn't have like solutions or had a hard time. It was more so like it was very messy, but like they actually came up with ideas.
I literally got shivers when you said that all the prompts have to be stored, that everything has to be organized. Because back in days, now it's different. You have all the prompts are in the system, everything gets
Yeah.
stored, right? But back in days, let's say 2 years ago, there was a lot of inpainting. There was a lot of manual work if you
Mm-hmm.
tried to do something that looked good, right?
Yeah.
So having all those processes registered would be such a pain in the ass. Such a pain in the
Yeah.
ass.
Especially like
But
when you take a look at the scale, I think a lot of individuals when they get into like doing commercials or like short films, like you can do it like on your own pretty much, like on a local computer, like save all the files, organize everything. Like it's not that hard. But like the moment you step into like more like professional production, like take Coca-Cola commercial as an example. Like I think they posted somewhere they had like 70,000 assets being generated across like many different teams, many different time zones, and
that's
like just
debatable, though.
that's debatable.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't like look up the details, but like that's what I saw at least
I
on the
won't
blog
go any
post.
further because
Okay.
those are people who were under, let's say, um, that we were chatting off the record.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. No,
but
no,
it
no
was
worries about that. But
exaggerated,
I
the
think it's
number.
a
Yeah.
good like example. Like take any like even commercials we have like on preview right now, which are like being done for brands of like the same size. Like the amount of assets you got to generate and generations for each single like shot across like both starting frames and then like videos is just it's enormous. It's like we're talking like hundreds to thousands of like generations until
Sure.
you get like to that like one perfect shot that like you're going to be using. So if you take that into account, like imagine that on a professional scale and like having to track everything, and on top of that, like as a business, right, you don't have like the control. Like if I work for you and you tell me like you got to use like Google and VO for compliance reasons, and I simply have like an issue where like I cannot complete like one shot in VO because the model is just like not good at a certain thing, and behind the scenes I go to like maybe Kling or some other model and deliver that asset to you. Technically it's not going to be compliant in the audit, like if somebody learns that it was done through like one of those models. So there were also like issues like that, and I think at first we had like a lot of hobbyists, like enthusiasts, who were essentially like exploring the whole like Gen AI for commercials and film and whatnot. But like now we're leaning into this territory where it's actually being used in like professional productions, and like professional brands, they have quite a lot of like strict rules around how certain things should be done.
So preview addresses all of those issues.
Pretty much, and it just makes it a lot more fun to work with like AI. I think when we started like in September, we were kind of like doing like a huge like audit of like all the Gen AI tools, like what's out there, who are like all the people that are like doing specifically the, filmmaking tools, how those tools look like. We just dove deep, like very much into like every single one of those apps. And there's a fun story, even like, when we actually had an idea, the first thing was like, oh, let's just go into like, code and like make some prototype and send it over to like the first users we talked to. But, my co-founder was like, slow down. Like there's a rule. We don't write any code for like next month. Like the idea is just to like, learn about a problem, get as many designers to work on this problem. So in September, like we got a couple of like really good designers to work with us in person. We met up for like 2 week sprint. We just ideated on like 100 different UIs and like how we can actually like solve this whole like messy production process with Gen AI. And that's like how we actually got here. And in this like whole process of like talking to studios, I think the big sentence which inspired a lot of like the solution that we have is that like one of the guys that was like running one of the studios said something in line of, artists, they need like their creative chaos, but then like managers, directors, and producers need like organized chaos. And that kind of like was this thing that was just in our head constantly of like, how do we design like a product, like a workspace for professional video that kind of like serves both of these audiences? Because the biggest pain point was really how do these like two groups collaborate together. And even if you're working solo, how do you collaborate with a client? Like client at the end of the day is still like a manager of some sorts. Like they're not an artist, but they need like that insight into the process. So I would say, yeah, preview solves all that. And then I would say the biggest differentiator from a lot of like the solutions we saw like back in that time when we did a lot of this research is that a lot of products in the market that were like tailored to like AI filmmakers kind of took this approach of like, oh, you got to make a video with AI. So as an engineer, let me go backwards. Like, what are all the steps you need to do in order to make that video? And like, if you reconstruct the process, a lot of the products that we have these days are very much these like step by step, like, input your script, click next. We generate like a shot list, click next. We do character casting. It's all like, step by step, and it's not really like very creative process. It's great if you want to like automate something, you want to get like a huge volume of videos and movies out, like, but this is not what we were going after. We were going after these people that are like obsessed about the taste, about the craft, about like infusing their story and unlocking something that like previously was not possible with Gen AI, which is like this workflow where like it was a workflow like you could enter from like any point in the process. So like in a traditional film, you had pretty much like this waterfall approach of like, here we have like somebody wrote a script, then we go into like refining that script, maybe doing like some previs, early storyboarding, casting of like the actors and whatnot, scouting locations, filming. We get like 2 takes per, 3 takes per each single shot, and then we put it in the editing room and we have like a movie, like roughly like looks at a very, very high level. But then with like Gen AI, what was really cool is that it allowed like artists and filmmakers to not have to maybe start with a script. You could like actually start and play around and generate a character, and then that character can be like an inspiration for a certain shot. Then you're going to do that shot and you're going to be like, oh, this looks cool. Like you just develop like the entire scene, and then like that scene inspires you to like maybe complete like the full story. So there was like always this big problem of like, how do you introduce like structure and how to introduce like, the process in the entire journey without having the bottleneck be, the fact that like you have to guide user like step by step with Gen AI to like generate like a full movie. So yeah, it's it does address all the issues. I would love to like share more once we get some time for that. But yeah, not sure if there are like any questions. I see you like looking on the chat. So if anyone asks something, I'm not keeping track, but please
some really
pass
nice
them.
comments. Hector Rodriguez was here for a while.
Oh, sick. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, I cannot share like everything. I cannot share everything, but like he played like a huge role in like what we ended up doing. Was a big advocate like early on for like all these problems. And yeah, I think when time comes, like he'll share more about like the stuff he's working on and like how his team thinks and does all these things. But like he's an amazing person and helped us a lot. I think honestly, like I'm extremely thankful for like the entire community, because a lot of the times like what founders tell you is that like, oh, customers are very much like not into talking to like early stage founders, like nobody wants to help you, whatnot. The Gen AI space, like really, like, and this is like true, like I have probably like more than like 95% like success rate on like reaching out to people on LinkedIn and getting a response back, is extremely receptive to like messages, like working together on like building these solutions, because we're so early, and like the entire industry is like it's tiny, and everybody wants to help each other to like actually create like and define what that like professional tooling like looks like, how we can each work better together. So really, even when I see the space right now, I don't see it as like, oh, here's a competitor, like let's fight, with each other. I almost see it's like it's good to have more people working on these problems, because collectively we just like grow the pie, like we grow the exposure to Gen AI, like a lot more studios and professionals come in, and then it's like it was super fun to like chat to like everyone, and yeah.
Reminds me on early days of internet, like early 90s,
Yeah, I
where
was not there.
this was a domain of enthusiasts. Let's change the world. Let's all come together and let's
Yeah.
resolve all major issues, right?
Yeah.
I hope that AI won't get into the same lane. I really, really wish that everything will stay as is, because with the collaboration we can achieve big, big, big things. And I think that AI is a super cool platform for that, because we are able to do that and we can do that. The thing is that, will we do that? Well, only time will tell. Okay, so Stefan, you started shipping preview to first testers. What was their reply? What was their feedback? What was their reaction?
A very, very pleasant one. So we again, as thankful as I am for like all the people that like provided input early on, I'm also like incredibly thankful for like all the studios that actually trusted us like so early with all of this. We personally went for this approach where we didn't want to build like a product and then just like ship it to everyone, and then we are like, go like just observe the feedback and improve. Instead, we wanted like a more controlled environment where like we would actually learn alongside these studios and improve the platform. So essentially what we've done is that like mid-December, we found like a first studio. Happy to mention the name. It's Ricardo from Anima Studios. They were kind of like one of these like AI native studios that was like experimenting a lot with Gen AI, doing a lot of like really cool stuff. And they were like open to using like new tools and new products. So we met them like early on in the journey, maybe like September, October, and we said like, when we have the first prototype, like we would love for you to kind of like test it, and keep in mind that this is like a private alpha. It's going to break. There's going to be a ton of things you're going to like miss, but like the feedback is extremely important, and we are going to go and do our best to actually like get that feedback, work on it, improve the whole like product experience, and just like repeat that process all the time. So in December, actually, late November, I flew to London. I met with the guys, like we were in the Bionic Awards together, and I actually showed them like an early demos. And then like in December, I gave them the access, and they're like blown away. Like we literally have so every customer, every user of preview gets like my phone number. We get like a little WhatsApp chat start going on. We invite like the entire preview team, to be with the customer. And with Anima, it was wonderful because every single day there would be like a couple of messages per hour, and this will like last for like a month. And the team was literally doing they transitioned their entire like production pipeline to preview. So they were doing both commercials for like big brands, as well as like some short films and later films to be done in preview. And it was like kind of like a good stress test, because we had like a team of, I think at the time there were like 5-6 people that were like using preview at the same time in the same workspace in the same project. So it was like really cool to hear that feedback. And essentially after that, we've kind of repeated the process for like 100 more studios like this. So my inbox is like overflowing with messages, but the feedback has been like incredible so far. I would say like it's important to keep in mind that as we were like onboarding studios, we had like a couple of constraints like in mind. So first off, we were not comfortable onboarding studios that have like expectation that like this product is going to function, like unboxing like a new iPhone. Like it's still like a private alpha. So we were looking for teams who had a little bit more of like flexibility, understanding that like as they get to use this, it may like break somewhere, like it may have like some rough edges. And over time, like obviously the quality of the product went like significantly up. So now we are like comfortable onboarding pretty much anyone. But we wanted to onboard teams who were like willing to help us. And most importantly, who faced those like problems we learned back in September. So like, everybody who was using like Figma, Miro, Milanote, like we just, called them and we were like, hey, we have like significantly better solution in place for like organizing your shots. And on top of that, like you get 100 other features and benefits to kind of like streamline the process. And the feedback we're getting is just like super nice. Like I'm currently like in the Pacific time zone. So when I wake up, I have like hundreds of messages to kind of like go through. And there's like a couple of studios that provide incredible like level of feedback like every day. Like I would wake up, there's like one guy, like he runs like his own studio solo, like Roni. He would actually like write a feedback in like a Notion document. And it would be like this huge Notion doc that he would send. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, means so much to us. And I forget about it. And then 2 days after, my designer comes in and he's like, have you seen the page 2? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, there's like round 2 of feedback. So I go to Notion. He made like 2 pages. There's like round 1, round 2. And I was like, thank you. And then literally like over the next 2 weeks, I think we're now at like round 10 or something. And like every round of feedback is like a separate Notion document with like reviews of the flows and whatnot. So we got a ton of like high quality feedback on how to improve the platform. We go back to the team, we design everything and then deliver those solutions. And more so recently, we started to onboard some studios who work on like really like high budget productions, like Hollywood level feature films, etc. And the feedback we get from them is a little bit more like, you got to fix this like ASAP. We need this like feature to help us work on like this 2-hour, feature film. But again, even that is like incredible because first off, they're like using the platform like every single day for like, the entire day is like the entire team. And then on top of that, like they're requesting these features, which actually, are not like random things. They actually come from like a real pain points that, studios face. And collectively, like all studios kind of like participate in like shaping the next steps of preview. So if you were to ask me like what's the roadmap, like sure, I roughly know, where we're going, like have a strong vision of where things are going.
With the roadmap, I just want to give a big
Yeah.
shout to Roni. He actually
yeah.
joined the Lighthouse Academy team, and
Sick.
we are on the verge of revealing something very new that we will be handling. But until then, if definitely check out our website, lighthouseacademy.ai. We have 4 ongoing cohorts right now, and we're continuing with those. So if you want to upgrade your knowledge, check out lighthouseacademy.ai and find a course for you. We have a couple of those, so I am sure you will find one that suits you best. Now, before we continue to roadmap, I want to stop for a second on feedback. Now, a lot of companies are asking users for their feedback, and I think that feedback is becoming a new gold because those informations are invaluable. They really help the product to grow, the team to grow, and to to create something really, really outstanding, something that community wishes. So what for you is a good quality feedback?
I'd say like pretty much what we get every single day. I'm happy to like dive into details, but really the kind of feedback we get is it's not just like, oh, you should like tweak this button to be like, different shape and size. Like it's actually like the feedback we get because it comes from like real pros that actually know their craft and they actually know how these processes look like in the past. And they are very much like enthusiastic about like what Gen AI brings. The feedback that we get is obviously like around like some small features like, oh, we want like this model, we want these settings, we want this to function, better. We want like a mini map to like navigate the canvas faster and whatnot. But like the most high quality stuff we're getting so far is just like a lot of feedback and thought process on like the workflows these studios have. So like every studio would have like their own custom workflow that they figure out like over the past couple of years, and just like feedback to like try to understand that and how they like ordered that into preview and how this is changing for them right now is like super helpful because that's like the highest quality input we can get when it comes to like designing like the whole like interface.
More like the big picture, not the details.
The big picture, right? Yeah. But we also get like so many like feedback on like the little details. Obviously, like we like small things like I want to like be able to like not just reorder the shots, but I want to reorder the scenes. And I want to like color code this, I want to like favorite certain images, etc. Like we get a lot of that kind of feedback. It's super helpful as well, but like the most interesting bit is always like that, like bigger picture thinking, when we actually have studios come to us and they like write 2 pages of like detailed walkthrough of how does the process look like, what they wish existed. And what is beautiful here is that like we don't take this feedback and be like, oh, we're just gonna like implement it right away. We actually like go on a call with them, like try to understand what the actual like core problem is that they're like running into, and then collectively work together on like finding a solution that not just works for them, but it actually works for like all these other studios. So I would say like the feedback we get is like super 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 useful. And the reason why we probably get it like so much is we kind of developed this culture within a team where every single like person that works on preview has access to pretty much all the customers. Every customer has access to literally like my mobile phone number, like Slack, WhatsApp, iMessage, FaceTime, like anything. Like it hits on the personal life, but like everybody has like direct access to like passing that feedback. Everybody from the team sees that feedback like in real time, and we developed this company culture where essentially every time like a studio or like a single artist creator like asks about something, we're not just going to say thank you for feedback, we're going to pass it off to like engineering team, and then we never come back to you. We literally say here, okay, like just jump on a call, like 15-minute call, like let's go through this. Does this work? Does this work? We come up with a couple of designs. We show it to studios, and they're like, "Wow, this is like really, really cool." And like we would sometimes ship like improvements within the same day. So when we started like working in December with Anima, like they actually had like so many feature requests, which were like obvious, like from this point of view. But like back then, I was like, I didn't even think about those. And we had like their team, chat to us like at 9 a.m. in the morning. We would pretty much like jump on a call like immediately. It would be like either myself or Velko or like one of the engineers, and then we would like develop a solution. We would like deploy it to their workspace. They would test it. We would refine it. And I think what not customers, like users, creatives really want is that like established trust, where like if they pass like a certain feedback to a company, like that feedback is actually like taken care of, and like somebody, like the real human eyes are actually like looking at it and thinking about it. And it's not just another like entry to like some database that like some product manager is going to look like 6 months from now. So I think that was like extremely useful compared to like a lot of other companies I know in the space.
Do you think that this is the advantage of small teams? Do you think that big companies would be able to do that?
I think that it's not about a team size. I think it's about a focus. I think if you look at like a lot of the companies that exist in the market, this is kind of like same situation we had at like V.io, like an online video editor. Like, you're not building a tool for like one demographics, you're building like a tool for like everyone. And in terms of like Gen AI, like a lot of the tools that are mainstream these days, they're not just making tools for filmmakers. They're making tools for, fashion designers. They're making tools for architects. They want like the interfaces and like the UI and like all the features to kind of like universally work across pretty much any use case you can imagine that like a professional will like run into. And because of that like focus issue, if like there's somebody who asks for like a very specific thing that's like very niche to like filmmaking, these bigger companies are like, even if they see the feedback, they're like, we cannot fit that into like the product, because the product needs to serve everyone. And with preview, like when we started, I just said we're going to focus on video production with Gen AI, and it's going to be for professionals only. So I don't care at all about like input a prompt, get a video out. In fact, like with preview, we literally don't export like MP4 videos at all. Like you integrate with like all of the pro video tools, and like you get a direct timeline export to like DaVinci, Resolve, Premiere. But I think the focus is really what helps, because if you're focused, you can get like a lot of high quality customers like early on. They're going to trust you more. Plus their feedback is something that they can actually work with. It's not just going to be like a high level thing that like there's no way for you to plug into the roadmap. So I would say like it's not so much about like the team size, more so about the focus first. And then team size definitely helps. Like the less layers of management you have, like the easier it is to like put customers in touch with engineers and actually make it so that like it's this like collaborative environment. So I'm not sure if like any of the like the users are watching, but like usually how this goes is that like they will literally write a feedback, and we have like this continuous loop on WhatsApp where like we ideate all features. Obviously like more professional ones are like on Slack or Microsoft Teams and like some other messaging platforms I've never heard of. But yeah, we're working with them is just huge thumbs up.
So, you said you were talking to traditional studios that didn't have a lot of knowledge of AI. So, how do you talk to those people? How do you educate them? Do you go to explaining what is latent diffusion technology, or
Hmm.
how do you make them realize that this is a technology that cannot yet be tamed? Yes, it's super exciting, and it saves you so much time and money and blah blah blah, the
Yeah.
nerd stuff.
So that part of like evangelism, like we don't do. Like I think again comes back to focus. Like, you know, we're best at like doing product, and like we just want to make sure we deliver the best product to people that are actually curious about the technology. So for studios who are like, we don't care about like Gen AI, which is like, you know, day by day there's like fewer and fewer of them. But like for those kind of studios, we just, you know, we spend time early on just trying to like generally understand the production process behind like, you know, feature films, shows, movies, etc. But like we don't spend any time like teaching them about like the Gen AI stuff and like what it can do and what it cannot do. That said, there is like a bucket of like these professional like traditional studios which crave, you know, the whole like AI movement. They want to understand how they can incorporate Gen AI in their production, but the issue with them is because again the teams are like so large, they have no idea like where to start. So those studios actually like they mentioned like Lighthouse, they mentioned a couple of other people that are on the platform. Those studios would usually hire one of those like AI native studios to actually do the training, and this is how we would like get exposure to them. So and essentially like that's how we decided like spend the time on like the people that are like, you know, craving that like Gen AI momentum and they wanted to work with it. And then I feel like, you know, because of that, like we're very well prepared for like the traditional studios, because the moment like those traditional ones start to like embrace AI a little bit more than what they are right now, they're actually going to have like a workspace in the home where they can actually come in and like it's going to feel familiar. It's not going to be like, is this like a prom box? What do I do with this video? Like it's actually going to feel like something that, you know, you would actually see in a traditional production.
Yeah. And something Eric said, he's here for the hype, and I don't blame him. Hi, Eric. So the thing is that in circles, preview has been really talked about a lot. There is a lot of hype going on without
That's good.
even, uh, without even leaking anything, without any animations, without any previews, without a couple of LinkedIn posts here and there, but the hype is real. The hype in the right circles is through the roof. I mean, people are talking
Yeah.
about this even before the public release. That means, I mean, that means something. That means that people who've tried it are trusting not just you, but the the prospect of it, the that it is something that everyone will want to use, right?
Yeah. That's
And I think
yeah.
this is great. Without any marketing, without any advertising, you just start, putting out things, and you get a lot of hype and feedback without hyping people.
Yeah, like it was essentially, so the way like the whole like, growth loop started is like we onboarded one studio, you wake up the next morning and you're that studio is like, can you invite like a couple of more people? And then they're also like, can you give access to my friends? So like pretty much like word of mouth, like we grew to like more than like 1,000 people on a wait list. And it's like a lot of like the professional studios in there as well, and like bigger teams, etc. So like pretty much all the growth and the buzz so far comes either from like that, like just natural word of mouth. Like even you, like when I showed you, like you were like an invite and you sent me like a list of 20 email addresses, and I was like, oh, hold up, like can't do that like immediately. But you know, it's either that or like there's like maybe a handful of LinkedIn posts that I've done, which are basically like 15-20 second like, you know, fast walkthroughs of like certain features, because I was not like comfortable like showcasing like everything in this like unfinished state. But you know, day by day it's coming together, and we're preparing for like more so like a public, you know, at least like self-serve, you know, private alpha. Right now pretty much everybody that gets access to preview, I think this is kind of like important to mention, because there are probably some people curious like, you know, why didn't you let me in
We
already?
got we got a couple of questions. When
Yeah.
public release,
Yeah.
when can we access
So
video?
so for those, essentially what I want to ensure is like everybody who uses preview has like absolute like best experience out there. I think like good comparison of like how we operate as a team is like a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Like everybody on the team, like all the staff, you know, cooks, whatnot, they have to be obsessed about like the customer satisfaction. And this is generally something like right now, the product of this scale, we can only achieve if we like onboard people one by one. Everybody gets like full access to the entire team through like the 24/7 support, through to being able to like influence the roadmap, etc. And like you can imagine like that, like at a team of our size, like there's a ton of like constraints. Like if we cannot like let 1,000 people in like tomorrow to use preview. So right now we're working on making sure like the product is more polished for like this like first time experience. So like when you enter it, you actually understand what's happening, because the interface itself, we didn't make it to be like prompt to video. So it's kind of like just type your idea and you get a result. It's actually like a production workspace. Like it takes a little while to like understand and like make it be like working for you and like make it be so efficient for like your workflow. So for everyone who's waiting, like feel free to like drop me a DM. I'm happy to give you access like without like that one-on-one demo, because I'll probably like do one right now. And then essentially you'll still get access to like the same support roadmap. Everything is like all these other like studios that came in. It's just that like I probably wouldn't have like time to like jump on like an hour-long demo to share everything in person. But very soon there's going to be like documentation, video walkthroughs. We have like an agent in the app that like runs and understands like the entire interface very well, which can like give you help in real time. So it's coming. Like I'm not going to say a date because we don't have it. We generally plan to launch the product like January 20th or something like that to public. And then we are like, there is no point. Like the inbound we get is like so high that like we cannot serve this many people. And we were like, okay, we're just going to keep it in the private alpha. And it actually worked out very well, because the kind of feedback we've been getting since, end of January until now, like really shaped also and got previewed to like whole another level when it comes to like file management or like organization of like everything. So, I think keeping this like controlled, who's in, who's not, what kind of feedback gets around is also like super helpful. Because coming back to like the focus discussion we had, like if you just let everyone, then you're going to get people that are like, oh, I want like can you add like a prompt box, which is going to like generate me like a 2-hour movie if I pay like $100 for it. And I was like, yeah, that's not what we're building towards. Like we're building for people that actually might have an idea, or they're like exploring one and they actually want to carry out like a professional like production with like a team of like a few people. And yeah, so that said, like happy to share access right now, but at the same time, also not going to do it at like a wide, scale, at least not until like a month or two from now.
So there are 3 ways to get into preview. One is join the waitlist and hope for the best. 2, DM you and hope for the best. Or sign in Lighthouse Academy, where all the participants will get a free access. So you can do that, of course.
Everything works. I think if you spend like an hour so far being on this call, like there's access coming. It's like no rush.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, are we ready to get this live demo going on? By the way,
Hi.
Jordan Daniel Chesney is saying hi. He is
hello.
He's here.
Yeah, we met him for this is like the beautiful part of like doing companies and like having a little bit of money on the side to kind of like do a lot of crazy ideas. But like we met a lot of our users in person. Like Jordan was one of them. Like we actually met maybe like around 2-3 weeks ago in person for the first time. And there's like just generally something like super cool about meeting people first. Like I met Jordan like back in September. And he was like this guy from Miami. He was running his like a very successful agency. He was teaching a lot of other studios how to actually like do production workflows. And he would spend time with us like, almost weekly to provide feedback. So when the opportunity to meet him like in person like showed up, I was like, let's do it. And the same thing happened with a lot of other like people from the space. Like in my gallery, I probably have like, I don't know, dozens of photos with, like a bunch of people from the community, like even going to like conferences, meeting like creators, meeting studios. Like 2 weeks ago, I was at Google meeting all the big studios. Like last year, Velko and I flew to Spain, met with like a bunch of like super cool people that are kind of like shaping this. So yeah, hi Jordan. Love working with you in this.
Meta Puppet is waving. Hey Meta.
Meta Puppet, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's get going. Let's
Sure.
run this puppy and see what the hype is all about.
Sure. 1 second. So this is gonna be like the first the first demo of this. So usually because the team is like super remote, sometimes there are like some new surprises in the app of like certain things being like either new or changed. So I'll share it with you right now. You let me know if you can access if you can see the screen.
Right now, hold on. Yes, we are in.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect. Cool. So we are in preview. Yeah, preview is essentially like this professional workspace for AI video. Like this environment probably looks familiar to you. This is essentially like an open-ended canvas. It's almost like the one you would find in Figma, Miro, Milanote. There's no nodes, no graphs, no anything. You basically have your assets. You can move them around. You can upload assets from like any other platform that you're used to using. And this canvas is like fully collaborative. So like if Luka, myself, and like 50 other people want to be on this very same canvas right now, we can easily do that. There are like some really cool things like, you can chat. There's a ton of like organizational features on the canvas, like sticky notes, groups, being able to collapse groups and whatnot. But it's more so like the standard stuff you already seen from the canvas-based tools. And then on top of that, we were like, okay, like what are Gen AI capabilities like we could add here? So we pretty much early on, like the guys that run FAL, which is like that model aggregator company, they invested in us, and we essentially integrated pretty much like every Gen AI model directly into Canvas. So you have ability to generate like images and videos. I'm not going to waste time on this because like essentially I think everybody on the live stream, experience like some sort of like, Gen AI inputs, which is like a prompt box to generate stuff. And a couple of like cool things I would say like worth mentioning here is that we recently added like this whole like camera bag functionality. So like there is a bunch of like presets and customizations that like you can go through to essentially generate images in any style that you want. And then on top of that, like we also have like our own styles that we kind of like developed here that like you can easily grab. But all of this is like fairly basic. What's really cool is that back in September, I went to a lot of users that were using these like node-based tools, and I was like, okay, what is so special about like Wee for filmmaking? What is so special about Flora? Like what is special about like all these like new tools that are like kind of aggregators, but they connect everything in nodes? And everybody's saying like workflows. And I was like, okay, cool. What kind of workflows? And every time we just get an answer that says like workflows. So I was like, can you please show me those workflows, what those are? And I actually got to peek at all of those workflows, and turns out like people are making workflows for like generating like new like camera angles, character sheets, and whatnot. So instead of like this being like a node-based tool, we essentially took like all these like most popular filmmaking workflows and put them behind these like one-click actions, which are powered by Nano Banana. And essentially what happens here is that I can click like one of them, and it's actually going to generate me like a grid of like 9 images, maybe something alongside like this, where I can use these for like a storyboard. I don't have to, but like they're just nice to like visually explore like a certain idea. So we're working on these workflows behind the scenes. There's like plenty of them to look at and to use them. And we kind of see them as like a way to kind of save time. So there's plenty of those for like the early exploration. And then coming to essentially the whole like node-based discussion, I know there's probably some people that are like, can we please get like a node-based editor in here? And the true answer is no, because I think a lot of creatives, they don't actually think in nodes. Like nodes are like extremely cool to like look at, and they're very cool to like be shared on socials and whatnot. But like as you start working on like an even 2-minute production, like you realize like the entire canvas is going to be like extremely messy. So previous approach to this is like a hybrid version. So in here, like there's like a couple of takes. By the way, this mini map here is new, so I'll have to like figure out how to use this. Yeah, I'm just gonna hide the info on some of these images and show it maybe on hover. So yeah, like here I have like an image where I said like, a character named Greg is wearing Adidas shoes while sitting in a room. Then I said something in line of like, add a red hat to Greg. Then I said like character Anna sits next to a turtle. Then I generate like this photo of a watch. And then I was like, make sure that Greg is wearing a watch. And if we think about this in like terms of like node-based workflows, like this would be like, 20 nodes just to get to this point. Obviously, like, this is like a very dumb example, and like you can technically connect like 5 images into one and generate this. But a lot of the time, like people want to see like that full provenance that like nodes give. So in here, for instance, if I take any take on preview, we actually have like a full node graph saved for you. So in here, if I go into like a workflow, you're going to see that like pretty much every single asset like ever used to get to this take is captured alongside the name of the person that generated the asset, the number of credits, the source images used for characters, etc. So that's kind of like our take on nodes. Obviously, like there's going to be like workflows which can be like reused and customized, but for now, like preview is very much like this open-ended canvas. And it's also worth mentioning like we absolutely like love node-based tools for like the use cases where they fit, and we do have like native integrations, for instance, with like Comfy, where like you have a specific node in Comfy where like you can just pipe the outputs of like your Comfy output directly into preview for organization. On top of that, like what Canvas also allows you to do is like you have like a basic file management and also like management of like all the characters, locations, and props. So essentially, I can take anything from the canvas, and I can just say, like, let's make it a character, location, or prop. So when I go to prompt, I can actually like easily reference like a certain character. And now you can even go like a couple of layers more in depth and like reference a specific asset from that character. So there's that, and then you probably notice like throughout this whole demo that there's like this timeline sitting at the top. And essentially, you remember like early on, I've mentioned that like a sentence that inspired us a lot was this sentence that said something along the lines of artists need their creative chaos, managers, directors, producers, they need organized chaos. So we did see the canvas. Oh, there's somebody here. Oh, Velko. Yeah, he's probably on live stream, so he's trolling. Yeah, but there's a multiplayer feature going on here. So yeah, this kind of like sentence inspired us a lot to come up with this timeline and this motion that like anything that's on the canvas is really this like free form. Artists can like move around, do Velko, please. There's this whole like motion, everything that's in the canvas, you can actually take it and you can add it to your timeline on the top. And timeline on the top is not like a traditional video editing timeline in the sense that like you're going to be stitching together videos here and like it's not your like NLE, you're not going to be able to export a video. Timeline is basically just like a folder structure for like all the scenes, all the shots, and all the takes. So this timeline is directly integrated into Premiere, into Final Cut, into Resolve. There's like direct integrations for like all these platforms. You can export a timeline as like a XML file as well with all the timestamps and everything. And the whole idea is that like I have something on the canvas and I can just assign it to be, belong to like a certain shot. And, there's like scenes. You can see like there's multiple shots in each scene. And then for each single shot, there's like multiple takes as well. Because usually like what those professionals actually need from a production is ability to kind of like, have like thousands of assets that they generated and then like, put like maybe, a couple of them in the same shot for like a director to validate like what gets into the final production. So that's kind of like the motion on the canvas. But really what we do with this amount of data and this amount of structure is that we are able in real time to generate like a handful of views for you. So in here, for instance, we have like a typical like storyboard view, which just got made from like all the assets you had on that like timeline. So there's a lot of like information here. So I can just like, toggle off like the status. I can toggle off and toggle on a bunch of metadata. I can change like how my storyboard looks like, whether I want it to be like a timeline based or like a grid based viewing experience. And this is kind of like a nice way for like a director to see, how like a project is coming together. This is like all like real time and like very responsive. So for instance, if I take, this shot number 5 and I place it to be like shot number 1, it's automatically going to get reflected in your like video editor, and it's also automatically going to get reflected into the timeline. So everything is like very dynamic, and it's like multiplayer experience. So for instance, if there was somebody from my team and they changed something, like the changes would get reflected on this like storyboard immediately. And as part of this like storyboard, obviously, like you can click on every asset. You can kind of like see the prompt which was used to generate this asset. You can see the name of the person. You can see the model. You can see like all the alternative takes that I had. The ones I'm showing you here actually come directly from Photoshop. We also have like a live linking between preview in Photoshop. So you can kind of take any asset from preview off to Photoshop and then link it back all in real time for like that faster, editing experience for like these like small details. And then the more interesting view that we have going on here is not the grid, which is like a storyboard. There's actually like a shot list view, and shot list view is like a view that is again automatically made from the timeline, from that sequence you saw on the top of the screen. And shot list is basically like a traditional shot list experience that you would have in like traditional production, where we take like all the takes from a timeline. Every single row here represents like a single shot. Every asset in these rows represents like one take that belongs to that shot. And in here, like, you have a table that you can basically customize however you want. So again, I can customize, how large those images show up. Do we show like 3 of them or 2 of them or like 1 of them per each row? I can toggle a bunch of metadata here, like almost like in Frame.io, right? Like, a lot of people, especially like on like a more enthusiast side, would like just have previews of these shots, and they would have like maybe a brief description just to keep track of what they're doing. But a lot of professionals actually, like, the moment you step into like a production that has like 2-3 more people in it, you actually want to track things like statuses, or assigning different people to work on your project, giving them like a specific due dates, specific priorities for their tasks. So you can almost think of this being like your replacement for, if you're like using Google Sheets or like shot deck, shot grid, whatever is the name of that like Autodesk tool for pros. And then also, like, if you're using like Notion to track like any of these like shot lists, you can do that in preview. And the nice, beautiful thing is that you don't have to like relink assets from like 10 different places. Pretty much everything that's in here, I can easily trace back to like its source on the canvas. I can see the prompt. I can see the provenance of like every single. I can see the provenance of like every single thing that was done to actually get to this image through like a node-based graph. So yeah, that's essentially a little bit about like the whole like canvas versus like storyboard motion. There's also like another view which we have under development. I'm not going to show it now, or maybe I can. It's like a more like a Kanban approach, which is more so interesting for like traditional productions. This looks very ugly. It's just like a big work in progress. But the idea here is that like you can actually group your production by a lot of different metadata that you had. So for instance, like we have some studios who actually break their Gen AI teams, like in a real production, they would actually break it apart by the location. So for instance, I can go here and I can say, just give me a breakdown of location. And I can say, for all the locations that are like happening in the house, I can have like, a certain member of a team just take a look at those. And, if I want to track, statuses, etc., and I want to like break down all the shots by status, I can do that. It looks super messy. I'm not going to get into details here because this is generally something we we shipped this morning, and we need to do like a full overhaul on like how this looks and feels. But the idea is going to be that like you have like multiple views which all correlate to like your timeline in real time. And this just makes it incredibly easy to like, keep track of all the files, organize them. And then as soon as you're done with like everything, you can then export to the Pro Tools. And when it comes to like being done with like the stuff, there's like some cool stuff to mention. Like we have like a full-on like Frame.io commenting experience, so you can like annotate on images, you can leave comments, like tag people. There's like a ability to leave like private and public comments. Private comments are seen to your team. Public comments, there's like a dedicated sharing experience of like your storyboard, so your clients don't have to look at this mess on the canvas. They can just look at the assets which you promoted to the timeline and to the storyboard. So we have that. There's also like a full analytics happening behind the scenes. So like a big problem a lot of studios faced was essentially how much does it cost to produce like scene 1, shot 2, who's spending the most credits, like what's the prediction for like scene 3, etc. So in here we have like very like in-depth analytics where I can actually narrow down analytics based on like a specific scene, a specific user, a specific date range, and even a specific type of whether I'm isolating only the image or video generations. And then I can see the actual like model usage, both in terms of like how many times it was used, as well as like what is the production cost of that. So that's just a little handy experience directly in preview. We also do a lot more tracking behind the scenes to help like bigger studios keep track of the work. So there's like an audit log. Audit log is like this typical standard feature that like tracks every single generation behind the scenes. It tracks like who did it, what time, which model, which prompt. So if you're working with like a really, really like enterprise client and they request all of this, you just have like a one-click export of like everything without ever having to worry about keeping track of this data on your side. On top of that, there's also like integrated like native time tracking. I can share that later, but we kind of saw like some studios actually bill their clients either by the time they spend on a project, fixed rate, or the amount of credits. So like with Preview, you can actually get that like full understanding of how much did something cost once you're done with a project. So that's roughly analytics, character, location, prop management. We got all of that covered. One cool thing which we did recently, which is nothing like revolutionary on our end, we partner with a company named Board Labs, which is doing these like world models. And what those models allow you to do is like you can take any image and you can just take it and generate a world out of it. And you may have seen like some demos that I've shared on LinkedIn, maybe not, but essentially we can take any image that we have on a canvas and we can turn it into like this like immersive space that you as a filmmaker can enter. And then as like one of the customers like says, like it really feels like you're on like a real set. So once you generate, it takes like 10 seconds to load up fully. The fidelity of this is not like, you're not looking at like 8K footage here. Like it's a little bit choppy, but what you can do is like you can ensure that like there is like a full location consistency happening across your shots. So usually what studios do is like they use like these world models, like either generate them or like import their own, and then like kind of like go around, capture snapshot for like location consistency for composition, and then they will like re-render it with like Magnific or like Nano Banana to essentially preserve that like full detail using the original image. So it's like a pretty handy tool. We shipped this back in December. I think we were probably like the first product that integrated with Word Labs. So this is available to like all users essentially. And I know there's going to be like a question of like, oh, but like what happens to the other side of the room? Like if you pass like a certain image, so like world models are going to like predict what's on the other side if you pass them like one image. But usually what people do is they pass like multiple images. So like you can literally go around and like you can take photos of like your workspace, your room, whatever, and then like pass like 3 images as like the input to this world model. So the consistency of the output is going to become much higher, and there's not going to be like any surprises like we have here. So the whole motion
here,
we have.
can you do the vice versa? Can you create a world in World Labs and import it in Preview?
Yeah. So essentially, these are like just basic Gaussian splats. There's no any like hidden tricks here. We have like some of our pipelines for like capturing like a high fidelity images off world models, which exist. But like if you have like your Gaussians, which you like, you can literally like they're like apps on your iPhone that like you can download and like you can scan your room and you can have like a 3D representation in Preview to kind of like go around. And the beautiful thing is because Preview is like multiplayer, like you can have like one person being in one room and another person being on like a storyboard, and like you can have like 2 people simultaneously like directing and like being in the space. And in December we actually had like this fun thing. Like I had a Vision Pro that I rarely use, but like we finally turned it on, and you can actually like immerse yourself with like a VR headset or like XR headset into this space and like go around and like capture stuff. So it's like really cool feature once you experience it. But a lot of people like they saw the demo and they're like, oh, Preview is like this thing which lets you enter the worlds. This is just like one of the features. We like to say about us that like we are just like now like a full workspace, but we started as like organizational layer for like all the files, but very soon like adapted a lot of these cool tricks here and there. So yeah, like simple answer. Yeah, you can upload anything. There's like comments. There's a bunch of other stuff. We're working like an agent right now. So there's a lot of like agentic, let's generate like a video kind of experiences. But what I don't like about them is that like they kind of promise this whole like, oh, like you input a prompt, you get a video out, like a full story and everything. The agent in Preview that like we're developing is essentially a little bit different. This is equivalent of like you using ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini to essentially like ideate on your story, generate or enhance some prompts. The nice thing here is that this agent, once released, which is hopefully like a week or 2 from now, is going to have like a full context of everything that's on the canvas, like visually, it's going to be able to understand it. Like in here, we're looking at like a room with like wooden floor with 2 chairs and a fireplace and like a handful of photos on the wall. But then it's also going to have like a structural understanding of your entire project. So it's going to be able to understand, where are your shots, like which locations are you, who's assigned to them, which shots have been developed in the last 24 hours. So you can kind of like run dailies with your team and be like, oh, who did what over last 24 hours, who may need help, like what is the production cost. Like it's just going to have context of like everything around your production, like cost, statuses, visuals, pretty much all the files and everything. So it's going to be like really, really powerful. Like right now it's powered by Gemini. It has like the basic understanding of like what's happening, but we're fine tuning this. So I'll hold that off for like another demo, but that's basically what we have going on here. Couple of more things worth mentioning. Obviously, like when it comes to like organization, Jordan was like, guys, can we please have like groups? And I was like, sure. And then he was like, can we please collab groups? So like you can like do, collapsing of groups, like you can organize your assets however you want to. If anything feels choppy right now, like this.
The first platform that collapses groups.
Could be.
Seriously. Yeah. No,
if anything is choppy, I'm demoing this on like a $800 like MacBook Air.
No worries,
so
no worries.
It doesn't lag off the calls. It's super
it's your
super
face
smooth.
getting choppy, but the video is perfect. It's smooth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's the Riverside like prioritizing video over. Yeah, but that's essentially like a quick overview. I can like there's so many like extra features I could like easily dive deeper into here. That we developed. Pretty much there is like a new things coming out daily. So I think like one interesting trend we are seeing like right now in China is like these micro dramas. And in fact, like some studios in preview are actually doing a lot of micro dramas. So for those kind of like projects, you want to make sure like you always have access to like a same file. So like your team is not lost of like, oh, where's this character? Where's this location? So what we developed is like on a project level, you can actually have like multiple stories. And then the new story is essentially like a completely new environment. But this new environment has access to pretty much all of your characters, locations, and props. So like you can very much easily, do episodic content without having to worry about like where your master files are. And also worth mentioning that, a lot of the canvases get like quite large, and there's like a lot of messiness going around. And especially if you do like, a longer production than like just a minute or so, you're going to have a lot of files floating around. So essentially in preview, like each new scene is like a new canvas. So it's just like one way to start fresh because it's like a new location, new time. You can very easily like reference files from previous scenes. So like I can, easily access like first, last frame of like, scene 1, shot 4, etc. here. But like each scene is a new canvas. And then on top of that, if I delete anything off the canvas, it's never lost. We have like a full history panel here that like you can filter based on an author of a certain asset, or like you can search by the prompt. So headphones, it's gonna like return me like all the assets which have like a word headphones in the prompt that was used to generate it. And very soon there's gonna be like a full on like visual understanding of these assets. So like, you can even like type in the green little thing and like it's gonna show you the photo of this turtle. So it's super convenient. So you like never run out of like the files that like you once had and like you deleted them because you think you would not need them, but now all of a sudden you need them. And when it comes to like files, I know like another massive pain point is like the file management and like exporting to like different tools and whatnot. And what Preview does is like we actually name all the files according to their position in the timeline here. So like you would essentially have like files that have in their file name, they would have like, scene 1, shot 1, take 1, like a little bit of the prompt as well, and like all the metadata passed to it. And, the next follow-up is going to be like, is it customizable? Not today, but like in the next month or so, we're going to make sure that like all these like file names are customizable. So like as you export files from Preview, you can have like your naming convention that you were used to using in a studio for like that easy sharing of files. In addition to that, what else we have? Yeah, we have quite a lot of stuff. Like there's ability to like share your projects and then only isolate like the sharing environment to be the timeline, so that like your clients then see the full canvas that you have going on. So that's nice. Inside of the dashboard, I kind of showed the other day, not the other day, I kind of mentioned like earlier today that you have ability to track time. So for instance, here, what's happening is that I have a dashboard like of like all the members in our team. I can isolate the time spent in the app based on like a certain project, and I can actually see how much time somebody spent in the app. And this was pretty much a requested feature because some of the studios, they charge or at least want to keep track of like how much time goes into each project. And we didn't deliver a solution which is like, click start and end timer, and then like you rely on like the, people to log stuff properly. Instead, we just, because we have like all these logs and metadata like running behind the scenes, we're able to like reconstruct our activity graph based on like you commenting or like, navigating around, generating assets. So there's like no way to hack it. It's just like a nice thing to kind of like go back in time and actually figure out like the total time used to generate something. And this is kind of like the project view. So as I mentioned, like all the assets on the project level are shared between all the stories. As I enter a story, I can easily reference those in the left-hand side. And yeah, I think it's like a proper 20-minute demo. Usually when we run this for longer, we opened up the for more questions and whatnot. One thing I forgot to mention is like a whole thing about like the security, privacy, and everything else. So Preview is like running in cloud. Both Velka and I and our team, we worked in a lot of like enterprise solutions before, so we understand how security is like extremely important, especially in these kind of scenarios. So there's like we have contracts with like a lot of the model providers for like zero data retention, so none of your assets are being used for like training purposes. You get like full copyright. There's like SOC 2 and ISO certificates that are coming up. We're like almost done with those. What else? The data is stored on like a US servers. Everything runs on like Google servers. And yeah, for enterprise use cases, there is like an ability to bring your own key. So like if you want to run like a specific model, we can easily do that. If you're like a bigger studio, we can like very easily integrate some of your like custom models or LoRa's. So essentially like everything was built for like full privacy. Like there's like SSO, like audit logs, analytics, huge amount of features that like I'm not going to like bore you about, but the entire platform is like enterprise ready for big studios. And as of like 2-3 weeks ago, we have like a couple of like feature films being done in preview. So it kind of like passes the bar on like the high end filmmaking level. So probably it should on the commercial one as well, if you're like doing ads or something like that.
What can I say? This is so extremely well thought. I'm seeing this for the second time, the demo. I've been exploring it for a month now, and I'm still in awe. This tool is just incredible. By the way, Velko, thank you for answering a couple of questions.
Velko is here. Nice.
Oh yeah. So let's recap. How can people get into preview right now? We have a couple of
Okay, I mean, yeah, you can go through the options, but really the easiest is like preview.io, fill out the form. If you're like literally watching this right now, like send me a DM. Doesn't have to be like anything super complex. Just like send me the DM. I'll give you the access. We give like, handful of credits to people to like explore the platform. Worth mentioning also like everybody who's in the platform like today and for like next couple of months, we're going to grandfather you in onto like a free plan. So like you're never going to be paying for preview as long as like the feedback comes in and like you just enjoy using the platform. So that's important bit. So if you want to like use any other generation service and then like use preview for organization, like very much is going to be like $0 a month to like do that forever. That's going to be the case for like all the early adopters. And then for like all the studios who have like larger production needs where like, a smaller number of footage is not going to be enough. We don't have like any intent to like make any money at the moment. So again, with all the studios we onboard like right now, there is like a, base pricing of like these models with like 0% margin on top of them. So essentially what that means is that like the prices you see Google charging directly, those are going to be the prices you're going to be paying in preview. So there's like a zero cost of switching your entire production to preview. And like super happy to put this down in writing alongside like the MSA and a bunch of other things that like you can actually rely on these terms like forever. Like we're not going to like do a rug pull like 3 months from now and be like, oh, now I got to start paying. Like pretty much all the studios that we onboarded have have like this deal. So yeah, that's kind of like the perks of like being early. In return, like the most helpful thing would really be to just provide feedback, and like, I mean, eventually, like as you get in, like you're gonna understand the dynamics very, very quickly. So yeah, I think that's the easiest. And then I think for like the Lighthouse, as you mentioned, we're going to work out on like how to like enable that access probably like within the next week. So right now, a big focus for us is just, in general, like the demo I gave you, like it's great. And now like you probably understand what preview is about. If I just toss you into that canvas and I was like, go figure it out, it would take you some time to pick up the the basics. And we essentially want, first off, to have like documentation and walkthrough, so that like, if you get access, without me sitting next to you on a call, like you can still have that like same, pleasant, beautiful experience, and like have the room to like ask questions and whatnot. So now you see like what's holding like the general release a little bit, but in general, like, yeah, those are the ways to get in. And then I think very soon, realistically, we'll open up gates to like more people as like a self-serve without having to fill out like the form and whatnot.
I think a lot of people can't wait for that, because that was really mind-blowing. So Stefan, thank you so much for your visit. This was Lighthouse Live, a live session of Lighthouse Academy. So Lighthouse Academy is, well, AI Academy, where you can get a lot of knowledge. We have a couple of cohorts right now. We have AI for creative professionals. We have advanced Confi, basic Confi, AI for architects. And hop on our website, lighthouseacademy.ai, check out and see if there's something you would like to get onto and explore more options and raise your knowledge. So Stefan, thank you again. This was so pleasant as always, and I hope we'll chat again soon with another couple of features that you are working on.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what we built here is like literally 4.5 months of work. So like we can chat 4 months from now, and there's gonna be like a whole another like layer. Like we have like a pretty strong team and roadmap behind this. So the platform like week by week is getting like
I mean, creating something
better.
like that in 4.5 months is insane. Yeah. It's just insane. So Stefan, thank you again so much. People, thank you for joining us. Join us next week, where we are hosting, I think it's Amir Ferdos. He's an architect, and he just developed an insane workflow in Conv UI. I was floored when I saw it. So definitely check it out. The event will go live tomorrow, I think. We'll put it on LinkedIn. But until then, thank you so much. Thank you again, Stefan. Have a
pleasure, always.
Great day, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye.